Namaste and hello. Today we will learn how to paint cloth folds together in watercolors. Before you start painting, observe the picture and organize how and where will you want to start from and move on to which part next. Since I paint wet on wet, it's important for me to decide which and how much color to throw on which part of the painting and most importantly when. You can see the list of the materials here. I am using different colors along with Hooker's green to make different shades of green. Start with a light pencil sketch. This will help you to plan the composition of your painting and to map out the folds in the fabric. Starting wet on wet, I am first going to paint the topmost part of the cloth. I live in India and the weather where I live is pretty hot and humid. This is an advantage in a way that it will not dry too fast, but you can never be sure. So you have to be very quick when you're painting wet on wet. Starting with a combination of Hooker's green and cerulean blue, I am going to start from the light side, moving on to the dark side and saving my whites at all times. Also, tilt the board so that the lighter part is at the bottom. Remember to check the direction of light and decide the values accordingly. Try to figure out the basic shape of the object or a part of it. In this case, it seems like a cone. Hence, the color will be darkest in the middle and the lightest on the side where the light is coming from. Do remember to save your whites at all times. As you can see, I'm trying to darken the middle part of the painting, mixing orange yellow and Hooker's green at some places or only Hooker's green at the other places. In order to make the folds, there'll be a combination of the dark values and the light values at different places. Now that the bottom part, the top part is over, I'm making the edge of the cloth. Keeping in mind the values present in the object. Near the light part, it's going to be lighter, and darker on the other side. You can make designs on the edge to show the folds in terms of triangles and wiping out the color at few places. As you can see, I'm making small triangles here just to show the folds in the edge of the cloth. Moving on to the bottom part, wetting the area on the right side. Since there's a lot of white there, so I'll be wetting only a part of it and not completely. Also, since it is lighter than the left side, so we have to keep in mind how much color we need to put. The values need to be kept in mind at all times. Please remember that. Here I have first painted a light shade of cerulean blue, and on top of that I'm putting a mixture of hooker's green and cerulean blue, and keeping in mind that this is the mid part of the conical shape, so I'm making it darker in the middle. Painting the edge where the stitching, the fold happens in a cloth. Again, as you can see in the picture, it is darker than the middle part, so I'm painting it darker. Also, as soon as the painting starts to dry in watercolors, this will be lighter than the colors that you can see here. So bear in mind that when you are painting in watercolors, the color needs to be a little more darker than the value, since it will, as soon as it dries out, it will be a shade lighter. Again, the creases, the folds, so I'm making small triangles and removing a little bit on the sides so as to make it look like, creases there. As the color is drying, the water is drying out, I'm putting in a little more color wherever it is required and removing some color from some parts of it to give it the correct value. See, like in this area, it required to be a little more lighter. So I removed some paint from there. Watercolor doesn't allow you to play too much. As it dries, the color cannot be modified. So try to play with it as long as it is wet. My board is still tilted to the so that the lighter side is still at the bottom. Now I'm playing with the top side or the left side where the color is tad lighter than this other side where I painted just now. So putting it mixture of hooker's green and cerulean blue, and also making the edge of the cloth where we have the stitching, right? So that is a little darker if you notice in the painting. Now I'm painting on this right side. So just putting in color wherever necessary and waiting for the water to dry wherever I think that I need to wait for the water to dry up a little so as to put more paint, meanwhile coloring the rest of the painting. Now this is hooker's green on the right side, making it dark for the cloth to stand out better. There'll be a mixture of cerulean blue and hooker's green at few places, and yellow and hooker's green at the other places. So it's not only hooker's green here, but a combination of all the three colors. painting the below the background of the cloth, making it darker. As you can see in the picture, just below the tip at the edge on the right side is on a lighter shade, and on the left and the right of the object in the bottom side are darker. So putting it more cerulean blue and hooker's green on the left side and the right side. Now I can feel that I can put in some more color on the top to make it stand out, to make it a little darker since it is still wet. So trying to give the correct values for the cloth to stand out. Yeah. Now it is able to retain more color and not change the shape since it is a little more drier at the top. Moving to the little triangle in the middle part where it still needs more coloring. Now you can see that this is a little darker than both the sides, the folds on both the sides. So I will paint it a little more darker, adding a combination of hooker's green and cerulean blue at few places. And as you can see, there's a little triangle kind of a shape at the bottom. So this I have added with hooker's green. So, making this more darker and then the other two triangles on both the sides. So we have to consider any object in terms of shapes, and it will be easier for us to figure out the values according to the shape of the object and the light from which side the light is coming from. On the edge, again, I've made small triangles so that they look like folds and creases. Darkening, adding a little more color at a few places. As it dries up, the water, since it is wet on wet, the water tends to spread along with the color. So the values tend to change. So you need to, as the painting is drying slowly, so you add a little more color if necessary. Just play with it. Save your whites though. Don't mess with the whites. Once the color is added on the whites, you can't undo it. Almost getting there, adding little more color in the central triangle since it's more darker. Turning it upside down to color this other edge, other side of the photograph. Now this side has very little color on it, so just putting it just a little color just to make it more colorful on this side. Little bit, little value. It's not absolutely white. I'm not sure if it is too visible in the picture, but just a tad of color. Now with a thin size 2 round brush, I'm making the lines, the square pattern on the cloth. Mind you, it's not the same value across the cloth. It will be darker at places and lighter at a few places. Where the light is falling more, so it will be lighter there, and wherever I put in more color, so it's going to be darker. The lines will be darker on those sides, and it need not be totally black or green. It can be a combination of, I'm just playing with the colors here, putting a combination of cerulean blue and hooker's green at few places, and making these lines just with hooker's green at a few others, or maybe just blue also. Totally your call. You can play with it. Making the squares on the top side of the cloth. Again, wherever it is darker, putting in darker lines so that they are visible. Almost at the end of the painting. I hope you enjoyed painting with me and you got to learn something new. Thank you so much for joining me, and it was a pleasure and fun to paint and to teach something new. Just finishing making the final touches. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Please feel free to ask any questions. Thank you.